One of the best parts about commission painting is that people hand you stuff you wouldn't normally buy yourself. This is a walking castle tank thing from Age of Sigmar thing. Let's get into it.
Cracking the box open, you're immediately greeted with just a mountain of plastic sprues, and it can be a little intimidating to take on a project this massive. I mean, at the end of this assembly, this castle walking fortress thing is an absolute behemoth. It's like the size of my head at the end of it. But the one sort of challenging nightmare caveat of this build was definitely this tower. You basically have to build a circle made out of these stone rectangles, and if it doesn't line up, the turret won't spin. So you just have to take extra care and extra time to make sure everything is lined up exactly perfectly. And I think I sort of messed it up, but like it's good enough, and it snapped into place eventually. And I just had to do a little bit of behind the scenes cleanup work there to make sure everything is nice and silky smooth, because I'm not about to give someone else their model back to them and the thing doesn't even spin good. So, you know, but at the end of the day, this is my sub-assemblies. It's just a mountain of plastic. And I think if you're not used to doing big models and big kits like this, it can be pretty intimidating to have this many sub-assemblies, but I like having it broken down into these smaller bite-sized pieces that Voltron assemble back into this gargantuan beast of a model. But there's basically nothing else to say about it. Just gotta prime it up and get into it. So I've switched over to this Monument Hobbies like dark gray primer, and it's been outperforming pretty much every other airbrush primer that I've tried. So I used to do the like Vallejo, it was like a Vallejo light gray primer. Nah, Monument Hobbies, the Pro Curl stuff is, the paint is good, the primers are good. I'm slowly switching everything over to them and GW. I still like a lot of the GW colors, but the Pro Curl stuff, it's just silky and it doesn't need like, there's no BS, and it doesn't clog, and it doesn't run thick, and it goes on so beautifully. So I'm just doing a couple little zenithals. I don't think they stick through for the most part, but it's like, I do this mostly for my own sanity, just so I could see the model a little bit better. It gives me sort of some volumetric lighting on there, just so I could see what all the little details are. And I think it sort of shines through. It makes the paint a little poppier and less muted. If I was just to paint on top of the gray primer, I'm worried that all of my different layers would be a little bit dark and muted, and throwing down this white highlight on everything kind of bumps everything up. And then I knew that this underneath area would just be absolutely a nightmare to get in there with a brush, so I wanted to kind of pre-prep it with some darker brown tones, just because I knew I wasn't going to be able to get in there with a brush. So that's as far as I'm going to be able to get with an airbrush pretty much at this point. So it's a good old-fashioned brush painting from this point on. So before I even started painting this model, I did the video with the oil washes previously to this to teach myself how to do oil washes specifically for this model. So I'm just laying down some pretty sloppy, quick little base coats, just because I know that they'll be completely drenched in brown and black oil wash. And I think sometimes it's okay to have little painting like side quests for yourself. So if you have a technique that you're worried about testing out on something you really care about, what I like to do is either I print off some test models, or I'll buy some test models and I'll practice the technique that I want to do on my big model on a smaller project that's like non-consequential. So for newer painters, I usually tell them to just buy like a box of like Tyranid Gaunts or like a box of Orc Boys, and try to get them in different like colorways and prime them differently and try different techniques. Or if you want to learn how to paint flesh, or you want to try different undertones and different glazes and different transitions and gradients and stuff like that. You get a lot of bang for your buck for models that you don't necessarily care about keeping, so it's a good way to practice. But yeah, so I basically, from that oil wash video, my takeaway was to make it more watery and to let things dry a lot more and just be more patient with it. But I was still a little bit worried with removing it. So in my sort of test thing, I had used the mineral spirits on a Q-tip, and it was taking paint off, and I just didn't want to risk it on this. So I decided to buy some like makeup sponges, because that's what somebody in the comments had recommended. And I was still hesitant about dipping it in mineral spirits to wipe off, so I just decided to kind of elbow grease it a little bit. And I wasn't going to remove as much as I could have removed, but the oil wash thing, like, oh, it's such a game changer. I was so intimidated by this stuff, or like by this technique, for such a long time, but it creates these beautiful like color transitions and really nice soft shadows that you don't get out of things like Null Oil or Earthshade or Rattling Grime. Rattling Grime is so good. But it really creates these nice soft shadows, and after you let everything dry and you matte varnish everything together, you could really just go over it kind of like this. And I try to do these little painterly highlights back over what I had already painted, and you can just see the difference. It's so poppy, and the shadows are nice and soft, and as long as you just kind of go with the flow and paint back in the wood grain and stuff like that, it made it really easy to paint on top of, and the transition wasn't so stark. I think it looks more contrasty on camera than it does in real life. But throwing on these little edge highlights and stuff like that really made things pop out, like this door and all of the other wood trim. It was pretty tedious. This whole model was a little bit tedious, but in the end, I think it came out so good. I had to kind of mix up this like custom coppery verdigris color on the roof and on the front canopy cannon thing, but I think it came out good. The muted jade really is nice. And I had to come up with a highlight, so it just became kind of a Bob Ross, mix all this crap together, and it sort of made a brighter muddy jadey color, but it kind of works. It came out nice. It's a little brighter than I would have liked, but once it dried, it looked okay. And this is sort of how I paint. It's a little bit touch and go, and I'm not super afraid of making mistakes. There's only if a technique I'm not familiar with is a little bit intimidating, I'll take a pause and do it on a side project really quick, just to get some repetition and get some practice in. But otherwise, it's what's the worst that happens? This highlight is too bright, I just tone it back down and off we go. So now it's just a matter of going across the model and bringing back the midtones and the highlights. Doing this rope, I didn't really have a color ready, so I wanted it to still be this earthy tan tones, but I just added in some neutral gray, because if I added if I added white, it would have been too unnaturally cold. But this like warm gray color mixed into the vanilla color made it contrasty enough to stand out from the ropes. Then for the stonework, simply just kind of brought it back in with some sketchy little highlights, just setting up the undertones. I knew I was going to end up dry brushing over this, but it's important to kind of lay down that foundation. And then dry brushing stone with like the Celestia Gray from GW. I don't know if my pot is just magically thick and perfect for dry brushing at this point, but it just goes on so buttery smooth, and it makes stone texture so good. It's so beautiful. This bright red from Pro Acryl is easily my favorite red. If you want it to be more punchy, sometimes I'll mix in yellow or orange just to do some edge highlighting, but just straight out of the pot, this is like the best bright red. It's so obnoxiously red. I've been experimenting a little bit with the Procryl metallics, and I'm surprised at how good they are for some reason. GW metallics have been like the top of the game for as far as I remember, but I'm slowly switching over to Procryl, and I've just been impressed with their metallics a lot. I really enjoy their copper and their rich gold. That dark silver is maybe a little bit too dark, but overall their metallics are awesome. It's the same tried and true technique for the base. If you've seen one of my videos, you've seen all of my videos. This is how I do my bases. Just this one's the size of a dinner plate, and it doesn't look like I've covered it perfectly, but you'll see in the end that that doesn't super duper matter because the model obfuscates the entire base. I decided not to paint up the crew guys on camera. Like, I have the footage, but if you've seen me paint a few dudes, you've seen me paint a million of these dudes. There's nothing really so much interesting about the crew. They've all got white shirts, red armbands, and there they are. Once this thing is assembled though, I had to move my camera arm back and up just to get all of this back into frame. Then it's just a matter of getting the little, what are they called? The decals on there. I like to just throw them on top of my paint palette lid and have them free floating, and I could use micro set and micro sol, but a lot of these surfaces are nice and flat, and my best piece of advice with these, if you don't have too much experience, is just more water is more better. Always just, the answer is just add more water. You can take water away, but at a certain point, if you don't have enough water either on the model or on the transfer, you're just gonna have a bad time. I usually just, like this piece in particular, you can kind of see I'm just pushing water out of it. And then to get rid of the gloss of the transfers, I didn't glue that guy down. You just matte varnish over them, and it'll take away a lot of that glossiness that the transfers usually have. Once my base was dry, with movie magic, just airbrush random colors onto it to get different tones of brown and grays on there to make it look like dirt. I was always kind of intimidated by airbrushing too. It's something that I've only recently started picking up and doing more of. I'm still pretty novice at airbrushing, so I don't use it for a lot of detail work, but broad stuff like doing these bases or doing the matte varnish or doing base coats and stuff like that, I cannot recommend an airbrush enough. I've done giant models with nothing but a paintbrush, and I know there's a certain amount of like stigma around airbrushes, sort of. I think it's I think people are just intimidated by the thing. They're like, at the end of the day, it's just a tool, but I know some people would be like, oh, can you do this like tutorial without an airbrush, like brush only? And it's like, yeah, you could, but like, man, if I sat there and airbrushed, ugh. Anyway, mixed up a texture paste, the good old filler texture paste, glued this monster onto the base, and just blended it all together. I still have this box of Army Painter rocks, and I don't remember, Gale Force 9 maybe makes these small rocks. I don't super remember. But, you put your big rocks down, and then you surround the big rocks with small rocks, because small rocks come from big rocks. And you just mash it all together. Once it's all dry, just undercoat it back in brown. Just because I'm inevitably not going to be able to hit these little shadows that it all creates, and I'm not about to reprime any of this. My rock turned brown, so I got to make my rock back to rock colors. I think a lot of people kind of sleep on how important a good and diverse and interesting base is. It really ties the whole piece together, and it puts the model into a believable sort of setting. And I think a lot of people kind of rush through the basing part of things, but if you just do some very simple kind of like little techniques that are easily repeatable, like I have a process. But anyway, I didn't know which grass tufts to use, so I just bought a bunch of them, picked a bunch that I liked. And same with the rocks, a little bit of variety and a little bit of mixing different colors and textures together. And you end up with something a little poppy and interesting and fun to look at. And it really, the grass tufts, people sleeping on the grass tufts. And this is the most satisfying thing is base rimming. It's the most important and it's the most satisfying. And welcome to the completed Cog Fortress from Age of Sigmar. If you made it this long, thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out and listening to my rambling. And I hope to see you in the next video.